find some of it useful. So I'm going to talk today about commercial Umbraco packages, subtitled Selling in Deli. So I'm Darren. I sometimes like to sit in a fridge full of beer. Some slightly more relevant information about me. I've been working with Umbraco since 2006. I run the Level 2 certification program for Umbraco in the UK, and I'm actively involved in maintaining the course materials. Thanks to some of the people here today, I'm a current Umbraco MVP, for which I'm terribly grateful, and I'm not terribly good at PowerPoint, so everything will be default on white black with some images thrown in here and there. If there's anyone from Getty Images in, these are all mine and I own the copyright. So here's what I'm going to try and cover today. First of all, why me? So I'm going to try and give you a bit of background about why I think that I'm qualified to talk about this subject and what I've done around it so far. Then why you? Because I guess that by being here for this presentation that you possibly have a package, an Umbraco package that you're interested in selling. And then on a slightly negative tip, expect to fail. I'm going to go through some of the reasons that I think that possibly what your idea is will be a failure. But then, a bit more uplift afterwards, tips for success. Then we're going to move on to talk about the Umbraco Deli and how you can actually practically get your package up there and start selling it. And then some Q&A. I haven't time boxed this at all, so I mean I'm literally expecting to be through the slides in 15 minutes, so I'll pad. I've got some stuff I can demo or Stevie Wonder impression maybe, you know, we'll see. But anyway, so why me? Well, what you see here is a screenshot from Umbraco 2.0.6. And I believe that historically this is the first ever commercial Umbraco package. So this is backup for Umbraco from 2006. It sold 4 licenses. It gave me a sum total of £1,200, which, and it took me a sum total of 25 days to build, so you work out the day rate. It probably wasn't the wisest investment of my time, but I persisted. And so why me? I've gone through now 6 previous commercial Umbraco packages. Some current, some sadly no longer with us. So actually if we go from the bottom up, Umbraco backup, which I mentioned already, there were MS Office Tagger and PDF Tagger. These were, well, the title is self-explanatory, and these were kind of rushed things to try and support a previous version of the Deli that didn't quite make it. Then Built for You, which is an absolutely awful idea. I'll tell you why it's an absolutely awful idea later, and this is part of the expect to fail and learning from your mistakes section. And then probably the ones that are active and healthy and hopefully can give you some positive ideas about creating Umbraco packages. So PDF Creator does what it says on the tin, and workflow for Umbraco. So why you? What are your motivations, and why are you attending this talk? So the first point to point out is that you're not going to retire on Umbraco package development. It's not a bottomless pit of money, and it's a huge investment of time. So you're going to spend a lot of time developing the thing, but people don't really appreciate the additional items. So the documentation, support, updates, research and marketing. And from experience, when people have spent money, they expect a lot more from you. So if you're releasing free Umbraco packages, it's fine just bunging up there going, yeah, this is broken. This kind of does that, and it doesn't really work. And everyone's, oh yeah, high five, you rock, thumbs up, so on and so forth. If somebody's given you 200 quid of their own money and you go, this doesn't really work, this is a beta, then the reaction is slightly different. I think on the next slide, I've got a few real custom quotes. These are real quotes, I haven't made them up. When I say jump, you should be saying how high. 8 hours, this is a typo, but 8 hours to respond to a production issue is unacceptable. This particular customer, who was in another time zone, thought that I should get out of bed at 2 in the morning when, when their website was down. So I guess the important part here is when you're producing your Umbraco package, expect this. Expect that going from free packages to paid packages is actually a lot more demanding than you might anticipate. So, continuing on the why you think, this is a very generic graph and it could be anything plotted against anything, but I use it as probably the amount of time you spend and the amount of effort you're going to expend versus what you're going to get back out of it in terms of profit. Because you need to be satisfied with that ratio. You're probably not quitting your job to develop an Umbraco package. You're probably supplementing an income or freelance and so on. So really you need to sit down and think about this line and think about if this is days and your price point, really what it needs to be worthwhile for you to be doing this. So make sure you charge enough, but also make sure you enjoy what you're doing. It's not really going to work if you just decide to do something because you think it's a good idea. Because of all this support work and feedback and documentation, it actually has to be something that you're reasonably passionate about. Because nobody's working to be miserable, right? So, expect to fail. Failure is a lonely place. That was me at my lowest point. So. Sorry, okay. So, one really important point is developers like coding, surprise, surprise. So, if you go off and develop a commercial Umbraco package, quite a common reaction is, hey, that's really cool, I like what that does. I'll go and build it myself. So, you need to kind of sell something that's too complex for your average developer. And that sounds horribly patronizing, but allow me to elaborate. There's real complexity and perceived complexity. So my XSL PDF package is my favorite example of that. If you built something that kind of renders a navigation across the top of a web page, your average developer will look at that and go, I could do that. If you build something that in a click allows you to generate PDFs, then you might expect that that's an incredibly complex and difficult thing to implement. That's perceived complexity. So that's a good starting point. If you do something that's incredibly simple, a developer who enjoys coding will probably just go and do it themselves. So another reason you can expect to fail is that you're too smart. And this is, what I mean by this is that you can come up with a fantastically complex and wonderful idea, but people just don't get it. So what I try to do with products or services now is to summarize them in a sentence. And I think the best example of this was the original iPod, which was something like 15,000 tunes in your pocket. So that's just immediately clear to everyone. If you have a very abstract or 10-paragraph complex description of what your product does, then people may not even kind of click from the title and even figure out what it means. So make sure the idea that you have is clear to everyone and not just to yourself. So the Umbraco community is a wonderful place, and I absolutely love it. But another problem is that only you think that what you're doing is a good idea, and unfortunately, friends and family aren't normally brutally honest with you when you ask them what you think of their idea. So if you ask your mum whether they'll buy your Umbraco package, they'll go, "Sure, honey, that sounds like a really good idea." Equally, a lot of familiar faces in this room who have been nothing but supportive of me, and I'm sure that if I said to them, "Hey guys, I'm working on this," they'll go, "That sounds really, really cool. I would definitely pay for that." Not necessarily the case. So do validate your idea a little bit more beyond your closest circle of friends. So tips for success. This is me after selling my first ever package. So Thomas Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And Neil said, package development is 10% the idea, 70% of the effort, and 20% of the marketing. So I think the point we're trying to make there is to basically, to be successful, you come up with the spark, you work your arse off getting it together, but then you've got to move on from that, and you have to make people aware that it exists. Especially now in the packages section of Umbraco, there's dozens and dozens and dozens, and often there's duplication and overlap, and you are going to have to go out and be more than a developer and actually let people know that the package is out there. So, we already talked a bit about the illusion of complexity, kind of selling something on the idea that it's difficult. I'm going to talk about the role of the idea of the perceived expert now. So, I did a bit of research for this, and unfortunately it didn't come through in time, but most people who are experts are no more qualified than others. So in the community, everyone's an expert, but the perceived experts are the people who kind of stand up here and blog and talk at events and so on. And it's kind of, people will buy packages from the perceived experts. So just to kind of show how easy this was, I joined the British Association of Indian Restaurants. And the point is that would qualify me as being a vendor of Indian food and an expert at doing so. What I did, in fact, was to pay some money for a certificate. It's the same thing. You guys, when you're promoting your products, you just actually need to be very vocal about it. Who can guess what WTFM stands for? Right fucking manual. Another tip for success is that very often people do like paper documentation, and as much as it's often as far as you can get from a developer's mind to want to sit down and do this, it's absolutely essential. You're not always selling to other developers, and when you're screencasting and so on, it's not a physical product that you can put in front of somebody who has control over a budget. So something that could be printed out with a nice executive summary is absolutely essential. Remember that you're not always selling to other developers, that's not your target. We touched briefly before on basically the amount of additional tasks beyond development that goes into an Umbraco package. So tips for success are to leverage what exists. So our Umbraco forums for support. If anyone ever emails you asking for support, tell them to post it in the forum, because that way it's a reusable answer. If it's in your inbox and no one else can see it, then you'll get the same email again and again and again. Use the Deli for licensing. It's now, we'll talk about the Deli in just a moment, but it's now made it incredibly easy to get robust, kind of high quality licensing into your product. And then posted issues, issue and bug trackers and source control. You'll be busy enough kind of hopefully dealing with your customers, and you don't want to have to worry about this. Again, the developer mentality is to think you can do something better. I'll build my own bug control system. I'll build my own licensing framework. No, concentrate on the core idea and concentrate on explaining it to people and selling your idea. Don't worry about all the extraneous crap that goes with it. So, marketing, aka drug dealing. Possibly a contentious point, but crack dealers very rarely start out by just selling crack to kids. You don't kind of walk up to a school kid and go, hey, do you want to try some crack today? No. You give it to them, and then they get hooked, and eventually they're kind of crawling to your door and begging you for it. So, I know I did think long and hard about the analogy, but one of the best ways of getting customers is to give them stuff for free. You know, they're not gonna, you know, again, if something has a price tag, it's often perceived as valuable. So they're a lot more likely to try your product if you say, have it for free, and you know, and if they like it, they'll come back to you. I mean, there's one story somebody told me about Umbraco, I think, where a university, a company that specialised in doing sites for universities was trying to promote Umbraco, and they got very little success because it was free. And eventually they just kind of, because the license allowed you to do, they rebranded the back office and put a price tag on it. Don't know what the price tag was, but immediately everything shot up, and they were very, very popular. So the point I'm trying to make is that if somebody can get something that they perceive as valuable for free, then they're a lot more likely to try it. Another way of marketing, sorry, let me just completely rewind and say I'm the worst at marketing ever. It's my weakness in this whole kind of equation. But seek out figures of influence means just basically find your peers, find the people who have the most followers on Twitter, and try and sell them your idea and get them to retweet and talk about it. I can literally see that if I look at the hits on on the Umbraco projects page for some of my projects, you can see if somebody key tweets about it, or it gets mentioned in the blog, you see that figure shoot up. So make sure that the most important people out there are aware of it. Don't know what those last 2 bullet points are really. I think I was worried I was going to be done too quickly, so I was just trying to pad. So we're going to talk about the Umbraco Deli a bit. The good and the bad. So it's easy, robust licensing via Infolution. So I'm not sure how many of you are kind of familiar with Infolution. It gives you a payment gateway, so Umbraco will collect the money for you. And it deals with a lot of the crap that you normally have to deal with. So it gives you a standard set of terms and conditions. Also, it gives you obviously exposure on the packages section of Umbraco. And the bad, it will cost you some money, but arguably you get the Infolution stuff for free, the payment gateway, and so on. So it's kind of worth that outlay.
How much does it cost?
Percentage? Is it? I think it's 33% or 25%. Yeah, I don't pay attention to these kind of things. So to participate, you need 500 karma points, or to pay a fee of 500 euros. Minimum price of the package is 49 euros, and the whole kind of vendor terms are on that URL. If anyone wants a copy of the slide deck, just let me know and I'll get it across to you. So sign up for the deli, you set up a vendor profile, which is lots of boring information about your company and your bank account, or if you don't fill it out, you get an email every time you ask them for a payout. You agree to the terms and conditions, and then once you mark your project as commercial, you get access to a new section where you can configure licenses. So here's inside the deli. Down the right hand side here, you've got a sample project that shows you how to go away and integrate the licensing. You get the standard terms and conditions here. And once you've marked, I presume all of you have published Umbraco packages before, but once you set it to being commercial, you get an additional licenses button here, and that allows you to go and generate free licenses if you want to kind of give some away. So once if you click that licenses tab, you basically get a screen here that allows you to generate licenses for people. A license basically can be one of 3 types. It could be a domain license, an IP license, or an unlimited license. So IP is just, you could have as many websites as you wanted in IS and the license would work for all of them. Each license, you give 3 domains for it: a development domain, a staging domain, and a production domain. This is the screen where you set up the licenses for your product. So you just simply set the price for the type of license. So here you've got a domain license for 149 euros. You can play with your pricing and change it as you go. You can't remove licenses once they've been sold, obviously, but you can suspend and reprice as much as you wish. You get some nice stats, which I've grayed out. I was going to make you all really envious with my vast commercial success, but I've chosen to blur out the actual numbers here. Yeah, so basically you can look and see how many page views you're getting. You've got the number of downloads, and also down here, the number of purchases and the total revenue earned. If you click through to the detail for a particular product, you can see actually who's bought the licenses, when they bought them. I believe, I'm not really sure because thankfully it hasn't happened yet, but people can kind of decide, there's like a money back guarantee. I think within a certain period you can say, I'm unhappy, and then the transaction gets reversed. After the money has been held here for a month, then you can submit a form to Umbraco and they pay you some money. So, I'm just going to assume now that we've all got to the point where we're selling a package and it's successful, it's doing well, it's earning you an income, but we just need to consider the story of the goose and the golden egg, which goes along the lines of the farmer has the goose who starts laying the golden egg, and he becomes very wealthy and very successful on this. But with the success comes laziness, and he neglects the goose, and it gets old and dies. And so the analogy, the really bad analogy actually, now I've said it out loud, is that you've basically got to look after your project. Once you set it up and it starts selling and you're reaping the rewards, you need to stay fresh. You need to keep it up to date because this is technology and things have a very limited lifespan. I'm just going to check the time. What time am I supposed to finish? 10 minutes? Okay. So, this is a shameless plug. I'm going to just tell you about my commercial packages, which are available in the Umbraco Deli as of right now. There's XSL PDF creator for Umbraco, which does exactly what it says. And there's also workflow for Umbraco. And to kind of eat my own dog food and kind of do as I said, I would like to give you all some crack, or rather a license for each of these. So if you're at the talk today and you would like a free license for either of these, then just drop me an email, tell me which domain you would like it for, and I will send one over to you, and you'll become hopelessly booked. Yay. So I'm about 10 minutes short, but I'm done. So has anyone got any questions at all? David?
Do Umbraco do any sort of checking, like the App Store of your apps, whether they're accepted for sale in the Deli?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
But the terms and conditions are quite explicit that they're allowed to revoke your ability to sell it in the Deli at any point.
So if you try to sell a lemon and it's crap, they're just going to give all the money back and stop you from selling?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, if you read the T's and C's, they do say that if the package isn't popular enough or it's deemed not appropriate, then it will be taken out. That's their prerogative, yeah.
Acceptable for you is a bad idea.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was one of the ones where it was a good idea for me because I kind of bill for you, for those of you who don't know, it was an epic failure. It sold none. And yeah, so the idea that I had was because I had several different ways of selling, so invoicing customers directly, but also online transactions before the deli, and also sign-ups for the Umbraco course. I just wanted one place where these different types of orders would come in, and I decided that was the Umbraco dashboard. And it works, and it still does work really well for me, and that's how I do things. And now it just posts stuff onto FreshBooks, but I'm such a minority in terms of the way I do these different streams of business. Most people who are freelancers just invoice their clients. There's FreshBooks, there's Xero, so why the hell would anyone use anything different? So that's why it was a bad idea. And it was, again, I think that to come back to my points earlier, first of all, try and explain your product in a sentence or maybe two, and go and see if other people actually think it's a good idea, rather than as a developer thinking, this is really cool tech that's going to do a job for me. Jobs for your company can be very specific to your company, and that's why it was an awful idea. Any more?
Workflow is awesome, is it not?
Sorry?
Workflow is awesome, is it not?
It is. It is. Anyone want a 5-minute demo workflow?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'll go and get my mouse from the back of the room. I didn't.
So until Darren is back, let me just some of the stuff we talked about at Cook-Out regarding the deli. First of all, it's not like the App Store. There might be 150,000 Umbraco installs per the adept, so you can only target new installs. There's also no impulse buying. So if you're an app developer and have tried that, some of your sales are likely to be impulse buys. Because people are sitting with their phones and just want to try something and it costs $1. So, as Darren says, your expectations should be quite low. Let's say that at the HQ, when we create a product, we hope that someday we will sell our product to 1% of new installs. Right, so that's our goal and our ratio. So keep that in mind. Also when you do pricing. So, filling out time.
Does Stevie Wonder have a mic on there? Who kind of, I'm finding this really difficult when you can't see it. So, is that still on? Is that still on? Okay. So, workflow from Umbraco. Basically, once you're installed in the developer section, you have on your dashboard you can create workflow configurations. Basic properties are just a title and whether or not this is active at the moment. So you can turn workflows on and off. You know, if you have something that's only applicable to certain months of the year, you just enable and disable. To design your workflow, you can come into the designer. It's not, and down the left-hand side, these are the workflow tasks. So I'm trying to think what I can do. Let's just do a simple, classic approval workflow. So the first task I'm going to drop on here is a filter documents task. And we're just going to say that we're sensitive about the home page. So this is basically going to filter anything coming into the workflow to be documents of type home page. I also need to mark it as a start task. Then what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to add a user decision task which will stop the workflow. You can have group decision tasks, so kind of a group of users can do it. But I'm going to say that basically, if a home page will come through the workflow and it will stop at this point, pending a decision from Darren, because I've set Darren as the user here. There's another outcome for a filter documents task, which is there are no documents of that type, so there's another transition. And I'm just going to put an end task there. They're largely symbolic, but they just show that the workflow is going to terminate in this case. So from a user decision, there are two outcomes. There's approve and reject. So in the case that Darren says reject, I'm just going to have another end task. And in the case that Darren says approve, I'm just going to have a publish documents task, which just publishes all documents that are attached to the workflow. So that's a really, simple workflow. Tasks are essentially of three types. You can have a decision task which hangs in the UI and waits for a user to make a decision. You can have a runnable task which is just a piece of C# code, or you can have a delay task that waits for a certain period of time. All of these things are just plain C# objects, and when I click on one, the fields that appear on the right are just properties of those objects, public properties with a getter and a setter. The UI and the tasks are separated. There's no need to use this design. You can do this all programmatically if you want. So I'm going to save the design and close. And so the next thing I need to do is I need to set up what's called an instantiation criteria. And that's the circumstances under which a workflow will be triggered. So sorry, I'm just going to remove this old one. If I edit the criteria, I'm going to make it active. Allow manual instantiation. Workflows are normally triggered by events, but you can also kind of have a user specifically send something to a workflow. You choose the configuration that's going to be used in this situation, and here I'm going to use a I'm going to find the event before publish. So this is going to fire before a document publishes. I'm going to cancel the instantiating event, which means that the publish won't proceed. So it will start my workflow and then cancel the original event. And you can make this happen for all publishes, or you can kind of filter by user type or user. I'm going to do this for all users just for now. So, in fact, I'm not. I'm going to do it just for this one user. So I need to log in as that user. And so now he can just as usual. This is the problem with being live demos. I really have no idea where I got something in that language. Oh no, hold on. This uses Danish. I think that's why. Okay. Okay. So anyway, as you would have seen down there in the notification, the workflow got kicked off. If I go back to the content dashboard, oh, sorry, I need to publish the home page, I think. So I've published the home page. The reason that first workflow just ended was because I had that filter documents task that filtered down to home pages. So that first one was on a home page, so it would have just gone down the other branch and ended. But now if I go to the content section dashboard, you can see that workflow is kicked off, and you can see it's in user decision task and it's waiting. And in the design we specified that the user doing the transition was going to be Darren. So if I go back in as Darren, you can see that the difference is I've got the workflow on my dashboard, but I'm able to transition it. In the transition window, I have the two branches of the user decision task, which is approve or reject. And if I say approve and then transition, then you can see that the home page is now published and marked as published. So that's the really quick and simple demo, but it's any type of API event on media, on users, on style sheets, and the tasks that you see in the designer down here, they're just basically plain C# objects that implement very simple interfaces. So that's the stock 5-minute demo. If anyone has any further questions, then please feel free to grab me for the rest of the day. Thanks for coming.